G'day everyone, it's Lee here and welcome back to the Art House Railway. It's fantastic to have you with me today because we are diving into testing out this Hornby mixed traffic train set. And I believe it's an excellent one box solution to get you started building your layout like I am behind me here. So it's fantastic. We have two trains, it's DCC, a bit of rolling stock, and you're ready to run. It's fantastic. Also today, you won't want to miss this. I'll be taking you through laying track over the worst section of my railway, the double lifting section. And this is going to be quite tricky. I've got to get this right, so it's going to be a bit of work, but I'm looking forward to jumping into that. We'll get the soldering iron out, we'll take you through some basics. It's going to be great, so stay tuned. We want to jump straight into this right now. So the mixed traffic set from Hornby, it comes in a pretty nice looking box actually. So anyone young to the hobby is going to love it. The Hornby Select unit, also quite a small unit but very nice. Comes with a 1 amp power pack just so you're able to run about 10 HO trains. Onto the rolling stock now, and these actually don't look too bad. The Acme tank wagon looks a little low on detail, overall pretty good. The Hornby Select couldn't be easier to wire up. The negative on the negative side, and positive onto the positive terminal, power outlet into the power socket, and you also have another set of connections for 12 volt out, which is pretty impressive. Okay, so switching the unit on now, and it goes into a startup routine, just testing the electrical circuit of your layout, which is nice, and we're ready to go. Okay, so having a look at the 08 shunter now, and the moulding on it's pretty basic. There's no glazing the windows or anything like that. It's just form moulded, but I think for a basic startup engine it's quite good. The mechanism itself is a 3-pole motor, and I believe that both of the locomotives have the 3-pole motor. But anyway, it doesn't look too bad. Let's see how it runs. Changing the directions, just a press with the arrow keys and speed controller, spin it, and we're all ready to run. As you can see, it has the acceleration startup, so a nice smooth takeoff. Reversing couldn't be easier, just turn the speed dial down, change the direction, turn the speed dial up again, and away you go. And it also has deceleration as well, so it will slow down nice and smoothly. Out of the box, both trains come with address 03, so you need to change one of them. So I've changed the pannier tank to 27. To toggle between trains, it's simple as just pressing the select button. Oh, forgot to change the direction there just before I start this off. So both 3-pole motors aren't the quietest, but they are quite good runners, especially at slow speed. So I think that's down to the DCC system. It really does help these older motors out. And this pannier tank here is actually the better of the two locos. It's got a lot more detail on it. Definitely the more impressive loco for sure. So why DCC? Well, this is why. You can run two trains at the same time with one controller on all of your track anywhere. So this is fantastic. So hooking up the rake of wagons to this pannier tank, and they don't actually look too bad. The only one a little bit disappointing is the Acme, I guess, but hey, we're not looking at high-end models here. It's a train set, and all said and done. And that's really the reason why I purchased this, a one-box solution, just so I could test my layout when I was building it. That's it, simple as that. One of the best features of the Hornby Select is a circuit protection when you get a short. This is fantastic. Now I've run this train over the points the wrong way and it's set the system off, so it looks like it goes into a meltdown here, but just let you know that you've got an error on the layout. It's easy to fix. Just turn it off, correct the error, go back, turn it back on, does its startup check. It remembers what the loco was doing, so you've got to remember to turn that back off before it runs off the layout, and that's it. So there's the Hornby mixed traffic set for you. It's a great little set to get you going, and I highly recommend it. Well, it's on the track laying, and yeah, especially this track with all its tyres missing. So the tyres correlate to these brass screws driven down into the benchwork. This is the double folding section, or double lifting section I should say, on my layout. So once again the bottom ties there correlate to those 4 screws over there. So it's running over 2 lifting sections. Now I'm using actually the Hornby set track out of the kit. Now these were 3rd radius curves and it's quite strong and rigid track. It's nickel silver, so it's just like any decent Pico track. And I'm just making sure here that the screws are at the perfect height to reach the underside of the rails. And because I need to cut it through this section here, I'm doing these karate chops here to show you. Also there will be another one down the track that I'll have to lay across this section too, which is also folding. The tracks will continue on down the layout. Marking where the tyres are to be cut away for your track feeds. This is where the wires drop through the layout. So I've marked them out and I have to remove these 2 tyres in those 2 areas. The reason why I have to do 2 feeds is because on the layout in the corner it needs a feed there, and obviously the track's going to be cut, so it needs a feed as it goes over to the other section. Pretty easy to cut these out with the Stanley knife. You can just do them with rail clippers, whichever way you prefer, it doesn't matter. Lean on these, a bit of force, and they cut pretty easily. Plenty of blades left on this Stanley knife, so it doesn't matter if I wreck them cutting into the metal there. And this foam on my layout I'm using as a workbench in one big area of my layout. It's actually quite handy. That's how strong this foam is. It's quite good. If you haven't seen that video, go back and watch that one. It's an awesome video. Okay, so remove those ties, put it back on the layout, and I have to mark where I'm going to drill the holes down through the layout for the feeds. So I'll be using a 10mm drill bit for this. This just allows the 2 wires to drop through. It's mess time. There you go, holes drilled, but I've got to clean up that mess. I've got OCD. Whoever invented the vacuum cleaner should be given a medal. I want the wiring in. I need 4 droppers, obviously 2 red, 2 black, just to keep the wiring as positive and neutral. It's actually quite thick, probably almost too thick for droppers, but I had this wire already. It's rated to about 10 amps, which is more than enough sort of current or amp ability for this layout. But we're only using 1 amp system all said and done, but if I want to move up to a bigger system later, which I will do, then having this 10 amp rated wire is really going to solve that in the future. So jumping on to tinning the ends of these wires now. As you can see, I've already stripped them earlier. Buy yourself a wire stripper. There's a lot of wires to do on a layout. That'll save you so much time. And really, using a bit of flux just allows it to really drive it straight into the strands. Same with the track, use a bit of flux. As soon as you can see it flow, you know that you've got it hot enough and it's more than enough. So the flux and the solder is both from DCC Concepts. The solder is Sapphire 179, 2% solder, it's quite good, and the flux also is a Sapphire flux. Non-toxic flux is quite good as well. Also, the helping hand helps immensely. Buy one of those as well. They're only about 20 bucks and it just holds all your work up for you while you solder away. It's great. So here we are, a properly soldered feeder wires, and I always angle them to the middle so they can drop straight down that 10mm hole. So just one hole in your layout. Works quite well. Where the flux is even more important, we're soldering brass screws here. They're quite hard to heat up, so it takes a little bit more time to get this right. you'll know when you've got them right, because you'll just see it flow across the top of the screw head, and you know you've got enough on there. We're basically just tinning these just to make sure that when we drop our track down, it's very easy to solder. You're just really just heating up the solder and you get that nice joint between the two. You want this area as strong as possible, being it's the lifting section. As you can see here, one of my screws, you can probably see it's slightly dirty on top. I probably should have just sanded that one off, but we get there in the end with it, a bit more flux and a bit more heat, and that solved that one. Moving on to the foam rubber track bed, and this is self-adhesive. It's actually really adhesive on the back, so it actually sticks really well to this foam. I really don't envisage any problem with this stuff. Once again too, this creates a shoulder for our ballasting, and I don't see a problem. Once this all gets glued over with ballast, it's never going anywhere anyway. I need to put those feeder holes in. It's easy to feel for the hole in this foam rubber, so it doesn't take much to drop a couple of holes through this foam. Oh, the beauty of coiled up wire. You can never really untangle this stuff, well, not for a while anyway. Took a while to get this one started actually, but you just keep working away, you eventually get it. I actually had so much cable here, I could have actually just sat that track down and fed it with both hands, but you know, at the time you just do what you do. Okay, we're getting somewhere with these wires now, and this is when I just started to think about a problem that's actually just going to jump straight up and hit me in the face. Actually, it's the foam track bed. I realised that, well, I didn't allow the screw height to allow that 3 or 4 mil for that foam thickness, so they weren't sitting back down on the screws, or the track wasn't sitting down on the screws. So yeah, I'm going to have to lose some of that foam track bed just across that section. I can easily carve out a ballast bed out of this foam. That's the beauty of the foam underneath it. So yeah, trying to remove a bit of that work. That satisfying pulling, ripping sound. As you can see here, it's stuck quite well, but you know, this is what we've got to do. It looks pretty clear now. We should be okay to continue. Right, the track's down. It's time to jump in and solder the track to these screws, and it's sitting down quite well. It's going to take a little bit of heating up to get these screws welded to this track. The best advice I can give you for soldering anything actually, is just take your time with it. You know, let that iron heat up, and you should be able to get a nice flow with the solder, and that's the best way I think you can do it. So after doing these 4 screws, we'll just test it out, give it a bit of a tap and see how solid it is. Yeah, it's looking quite good actually. No problems. On to the other set of screws now. I've just ended up putting a bit too much solder on this track, so I'm just going to have to flow it along the track a bit. We don't want our wheels to get hitting on the inside of the solder build up there. So we just solder these other 4 screws, and I think it's turned out quite neat and quite strong. Well, it's time to ease that track up ever so slightly and just glue underneath it. I just use a nice thin paintbrush actually just to push it under. It doesn't need to be glued down with heaps and heaps of glue. It doesn't have to be held down with super strength bond or anything. You know, a basic glue down is all this track needs. And here's the other advantage to foam, you can just push some nails in there and it actually holds down really tight, so this is great. It's the same at the other end, we're just pushing some glue under the tyres here, ready to pin it down with some nails. It's a little bit tighter under this section, but we'll just lift up enough with the brush. You only need a little bit under the tyres anyway. This will work fine. Well, that's the track pinned down. I think the next step will be cutting this track. Oh dear. I guess it, break out the Dremel tool with the long sort of snake on the end of it. Makes it easier to cut this track at a level too. I don't like cutting it on an angle, so as level as possible. Quite controllable too, would you believe? So it seems daunting doing this, but I actually get a nice cut. And as you can see here, we've got to cut it directly between the hinges perfectly. Well, that's the hope anyway. Now because this one's on the curve, we've got to cut through, sort of angled through the tyres as well. So there's a bit more cutting on this side, but nothing this device can't handle. Ah, success! This is always welcome on this channel, that's for sure. And both sections lift up perfectly. What more could I ask? Well, it's time to temporarily wire this up so we can test this section of track. So I've got the blue and white out of the controller, and there's the white to negative there, blue to positive there. That's our two feeders. Let's go. And it seems to work. Does it cross his point okay? Well, not too bad actually. Now, is it absolutely 100% dead level flat? I don't think it'll ever be on a lifting section, but as long as it's pretty reasonable, we don't get any foul ups, that's the main aim here. While I got it tested, I thought why not just lift up the door again. Yes, nothing's going to fall apart, I'm happy with that. Well, this is an epic process, just this one corner, it took me a whole day, but look, I think it's worth just taking your time and getting it right. All we have to do now is continue around. We've still got another lifting section there where the end of the door lifts up to connect on the other track, but we're nearly there. Come back in the next day just to take these tacks out, and it's nice and solid. Well, I couldn't help it. I had to deal with that nasty wire hanging underneath the door, so I've just put this nice bit of cover over it. Go back in under the benchwork there, and it'll be great. Now I've left this section of the yard incomplete because I knew I had to do a fair bit of work under here, so that's why my yard doesn't continue under that section there, as you can see here. Well, I thought I might take you around the layout. I don't think you've actually seen this as a walk around, so you saw the other end of the yard incomplete, so this is the section that I've been working on. Just started it off, a few points laid, nothing spectacular there. Runs around, up the back of the incline, the lower level, and I've got all this area under here. I'm going to put a turntable in there so I can turn trains. It's actually probably an arm's length under there, deep, so it's quite a lot of room to put a bit more yard and whatnot under there. So this is back around to the start of the incline. It's my messy workstation there I've been working. It's a section we've just laid, so we're on the top of the layout as it comes out of the incline. That's our double lifting section, so half of this long side lifts up. Just started moulding some foam here. There's a section that splits in the middle that lifts up. So there'll be more lifting tracks there. And wouldn't you believe it, don't stop there, this is the other end of the hinge, so that's another lifting section there. So it'll be a twin track. We've got an incline again up around the back of the layout. The front track's probably going to be a lower level into an industry or town. I haven't quite worked it out yet. I'm sort of winging it really. Being a new layout builder, it's not something I'm familiar with really, designing everything. But I really have to work on the back scenes to extend the layout to make it look like it runs off far into the distance. Especially on a small layout, the back scene is going to be critical. And I'm going to be painting that because I'm a landscape artist. I'm actually going to be brushing every little stroke on that back scene eventually. So along here we have another incline up the back that continues round. The lower level's fairly flat, just the way that everything worked out with all those lifting sections. Be up into a big mountain area here. Well, I'm pretty happy the way this has turned out so far. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Well, thanks so much everyone for watching the Art House Railway content. It's been a pleasure making it, so please consider subscribing to the channel, ring the bell, press the like button if you like this video, and look, stay tuned because we've got some fantastic things coming in the future. We'll be diving into wiring, those tricky points that everyone seems to struggle with. We're going to keep it really simple for you all so you can follow along. And look, we've got a lot more fine work to do, building tunnels, mountains. So look, there's an epic amount of content to come. So now's your time to jump on. We only get one shot at this build. So as always, I want to thank you and we'll see you in the next one. Also today we're going to be jumping into some track lane. Oh jeez, I'm hopeless.